East African single tourist visa, launched earlier this year by Kenya, Uganda and Rwanda, has endeared the region as an economic bloc to be marketed as one to tourists abroad. Hello and welcome to East African Voices. I am Laban Cliff Onserio here at the Bujagali Falls in Jinja, Uganda. We take a look at matters East African tourism.
From Kenya's animal-filled Tsavo National Park to Tanzania's ice-capped Mount Kilimanjaro to a look at gorillas in Rwanda's Nyungwe Forest, a sight of the extensive bird species in Uganda, and finally to a dive at the world's second deepest lake Tanganyika in Burundi. These are all major tourist attraction sites in the region that have endeared East Africa as a destination of choice for both domestic and international tourists. Two years ago, East Africa attracted over 5 million visitors annually. This is expected to increase with the joint tourism marketing initiatives to top tourist source markets using the tagline Destination East Africa.
Marketing East Africa as a single tourist destination. We have been doing that for many years. And people are beginning to understand, to get the message. Now we have to remove all the barriers that do not allow the tourists to enjoy East Africa as a single tourist destination.
The region's positioning at Africa's heart has made it possible for tourists to savor Africa's best in one stop. Some of the top attractions include beach, wildlife and business tourism. These are all subsectors within the whole tourism pie that have strongly contributed to the overall economic growth through foreign exchange earnings.
We are endowed with a number of products. If you look at Kenya, we are rated as the world's leading safari destination. This is according to World Travel Awards. If you look at Uganda, also they have their own unique products, like for example, adventure sports like water rafting, which we also have incidentally here in Kenya, the source of the River Nile, as it is mentioned, and also things to do with culture. And then when you go to Rwanda, they also endowed quite a lot, and especially when you look at the whole perspective of the gorilla tracking and so on, which also cuts across in places like in Uganda and so on. Then if you move on down to Tanzania, again also they have a fairly strong product, and they also have diversity as far as safari is concerned and many other products. So when you look at tourism per se in the whole of East Africa, truly in Africa we are quite endowed as far as the product diversity is concerned.
Tourism accounts for over 14% to the GDP of Kenya's economy. It is one of the country's top contributors to the economy, catapulted by a unique offering such as in the wildlife and coastal tourism subsectors.
You cannot talk about safari, especially wildlife safari, without referring to Kenya or the East Africa region as it were. Again, if you look at the uniqueness of our beach, the beaches that we have in our country have been rated among the best by CNN Traveler. Now, this obviously recognizes the uniqueness of our product. If you look at adventure sports like paragliding, not too long ago, the world record was set in Iten. So we have the uniqueness that we can only talk about as a region.
Kenya is heavily reliant on traditional tourist niche products, but stakeholders are keen on increasing the choice of offering to visitors by diversifying from beach and wildlife.
When it comes to MICE, meetings, incentives, conferences and exhibitions, we are ranked number 2 in Africa, according to ICA. And we have been showcasing Kenya not just as a beach and safari destination, but from a cross-section or multiplicity of products.
The Masai Mara and Serengeti ecosystem is one of the most ecologically diverse in the world, and the annual wildebeest migration is eagerly awaited the world over. This has made borderless tourism between Kenya and Tanzania a logical development.
We have tourist attractions which have won even within Africa as the 7 natural wonders. We've got Kilimanjaro, Ngorongoro, Serengeti, and of course our island of Zanzibar is also attracting quite a lot of tourists. And that way we feel that endowed with that, then it's upon us to just maximize on what we can get from these attractions.
The Kilimanjaro, which is Africa's highest mountain, measuring about 5,900 meters above sea level, is also a sight to behold for tourists willing to have a taste of East Africa's largest country by landmass.
Tourism is still the highest foreign exchange earner in this country. And of course it employs a lot of people, they are talking about more than 350,000.
What is Uganda's offering to East Africa's tourism overall pie?
Our unique selling point is, of course, the mountain gorilla. We have more than 50% in Uganda in the 2 national parks, and they are unique, and it is everybody's dream to visit the gorillas. We have the adventure tourism.
Uganda's proximity to the source of the world's longest river, the Nile, has played out to be a jackpot for the government. Falls and cataracts that are close by have also endeared the country as a hotspot for tourists who are keen on rafting and bungee jumping. The visitors have strongly contributed to the overall economic growth of the community living around these areas. On the sidelines of our tourist escapades, we met 21-year-old Babu. Born in South Sudan, Babu moved into northern Uganda during the political turmoil experienced in the country, and he shares with us his story.
I'm from in Sudan. My parents born in Sudan and myself are born in Uganda. I shifted there because of the war with my parents, and now I'm staying in Uganda. If I reach to Uganda, I got a small job to river now as a guide.
How long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this for about 10 years.
Through his venture as a tour guide, he has been able to assist his family and his community at large.
In a good day, I get 100,000 or 200,000. It comes to me, then I have to share with the community around.
Rwanda, which is at the very heart of the continent, sets hearts aflutter when it comes to the thought of the magnificent silverback gorillas. However, the country is not just about apes in the jungle. Kigali is a rapidly growing cosmopolitan city which has set itself apart with the business and sports tourism. The capital's well-organized, safe and clean environment has also meant that major international conferences are also starting to be attracted to Kigali, and the city has hosted some of Africa's largest conferences. But as with every other East African community, the people and their culture are at the center of the attractions of the country. In last year alone, over 1 million tourists visited Rwanda, with a greater percentage of them touring due to business functions. Endearing the country to the exerted effort in the often neglected meetings, incentives and conference exhibition, simply referred to as MICE.
We have what is needed to attract people to come to Rwanda, which is a very clean place, a very safe country, a beautiful country to visit, very easily accessible, which was not the case a few years back. And so now with the new development, infrastructure-wise, it was time for us to diversify and not only focus on leisure, but conference as well. So we're not leaving leisure. The only thing we're doing is complementing that with conference tourism, because both are good income generating activities, and they complement each other.
Behind me is the Rwanda Convention Bureau that is currently under construction. The dome-shaped building is expected to be complete by 2015 and will have a capacity of over 3,000 people, a project that could potentially make Rwanda a top MICE destination in East Africa.
We feel that all the ingredients are now very much there for us to now take advantage of this added product, which is now conference tourism. And we also believe that conference tourism gives us that edge of having maybe a different type of people who would not normally come for leisure to come and discover Rwanda and then choose Rwanda as their next holiday destination.
Traveling further south, welcome to Bujumbura. Compared to other member states, tourism in Burundi is still in its infancy. The government's annual expenditure of $2 million in developing tourism products has rendered the sector untapped.
This basin of the lake has a lot of potential that we need to unlock to be able to boost, so to say, economic growth in the basin, which of course will impact on other parts of the region.
Aside from the statistics, the country has a unique offering, and that is cultural tourism. The dance, best exhibited by constant beating of drums, has been a major attraction for tourists. We caught up with a group of young dancers as they went about their practice sessions on the streets of Bujumbura. Drum beating represents a major point that tourists too would like to have a taste of Burundians' way of life.
So it's not all drums in Burundi. The country boasts of an access to the longest lake in the world, measuring about 410 miles and the second deepest in the world. But has Burundi as a country leveraged on Lake Tanganyika as a tourist destination?
Burundi has already undertaken studies on ensuring that we would have safety of transportation, multimodal transport on Lake Tanganyika, while also we would unlock the potentials of the lake in terms of tourism, marine, whatever activities that could be undertaken in the program of tourism.
It is these unique park country tourist attraction sites that have endeared member states to market the region as one. It is estimated that combined resources pulled together under the EAC will endear the countries to bolster in tourism sectors. Back in November 2013, on the sidelines of the World Travel Market in London, United Kingdom, the roadmap towards the launch of the single tourist visa was plotted. Analysts say the unity in marketing the region as one destination was well founded. In usual fashion, tourists would follow this route in planning out their venture. Full operation of the tourist visa kicked off in January 2014, with countries agreeing on the revenue sharing formula.
The whole aspect about the visa is that the three countries share the revenue. So if somebody makes an application for the visa in a Kenyan mission outside of the country, then Kenya or Rwanda or Uganda, whichever country the application is made, receives a $10 administrative fee, and then the rest of the $90 is shared equally, 30-30 amongst the three countries. Now what we see positive again, just to re-emphasize, is that it gives somebody the flexibility now to visit the three countries, enjoy the diversity of the tourism products exhibited in these three countries, and also for a longer period.
We're now going on a commercial break. East African Voices will be back with more on Matters Tourism. Welcome back. From Bujagali Falls in Uganda and now on the shores of the Indian Ocean in Tanzania, we still look at Matters Tourism in East Africa. For the single tourist visa, you're allowed to travel to Kenya, Uganda and Rwanda, but not Tanzania. And now that we're in Tanzania, we take on to the officials as to why they're not part of this agreement.
Tanzania is part of the discussions, but as you know, implementation within our treaty allows for variable geometry. Once you've agreed on something, those who are ready to move can move. Tanzania have not yet been ready to move on the single tourist visa and on the use of a national ID as a travel document within East Africa. So on those two, they are not yet ready internally. Once they are, then they will join.
However, we sought to find out, is it purely an issue of security or Tanzania has an underlying dire concern over the tourist visa? Mary Kalikawi spoke to us in Tanzania's capital Dar es Salaam and shared with us on the underlying reason.
Nairobi is among the biggest gateways into Africa. So most tourists coming into the East Africa region land in Nairobi or probably Entebbe. And therefore, the feeling that since the tourists would have already arrived there, in order to get them to come this way, we have to have agreements on how we would share if it was a single tourist visa, who would they pay before they came to see attractions in Tanzania, and the feeling that Tanzania has got most of the attractions and it probably lose. So there is a need to educate the stakeholders in Tanzania, as long as there is a platform where the East Africans in tourism sit together and look at issues that are challenges, issues that would have to be addressed in order to tap what we are looking for by creating a single economic bloc. Then there is room for this single tourist visa to be looked at and to bring it to a level where it will be accepted.
On the other hand, the umbrella body representing Tanzania's private sector expressed concern over the government's snail pace movement in implementation of East African Community policy directives. Notwithstanding, the issues expressed may still be valid.
The level of bureaucracy in Tanzania perhaps is much, much higher than compared to the rest of our neighbors in the EAC. Tanzania decisions take long. They take just too long. And if we really want to move fast as a bloc, we have to be on the same speed.
Cases of insecurity experienced in Kenya have posed a challenge to other member states, though it could still be argued that tourists who shun Kenya due to insecurity reasons move to other countries in the bloc.
A lot of people don't realize that the tourists who go to these places actually land in Nairobi. They land at JKIA and they cross over from Namanga into Arusha and do their safari. And then when they're done with that, come back again to Nairobi or come back into Mara and do that complete ecosystem, because we share the ecosystem. So if Kenya, sneezes, Tanzania will also catch a cold. Sometimes people say that Tanzania is celebrating because we're not doing well. Far from it. Tanzanians, it's in their best interest. Kenya does well because they actually use our infrastructure, they use our international airport to get a lot of their clientele.
An Ernst & Young report on investment in Africa notes that perception is a key element among investors to Africa. Tourism, being a sector largely dependent on perception, a perceived security scare is expected to dent on a country's image, hence its positioning to tourists abroad. Visitor numbers in Kenya have been on a sharp decline, news that rendered stakeholders a worried lot. It is these concerns that led towards the recent drafting of a 5-year tourism recovery plan. This will see added marketing effort by government and private sector alike.
The stimulus package looked at a three-pronged approach. It looked at the domestic market, the regional market, and the international markets. For example, when you look at the whole aspect of reduction in park entry fees, it was for the premium parks. It looked at the reduction on the basis of visitation by the international markets and also by the local residents. Again, also a new measure that was introduced on 12th of June is the vacation expenses. Or vacation tax, as it were. Now, meaning that some of the corporates will be allowed to let their people go on holiday for at least a week, and then they are reimbursed the money spent on vacation. Now, that is geared towards stimulating domestic demand.
Domestic tourism may just be the joker card for Kenya in light of travel restrictions issued against the country.
Tourism is not just the guy who's going to spend $150 to $200 in a hotel. Even the guy who's going to sleep in a boarding and lodging and spending $10, $20, that's also tourism, because they're going to occupy the non-star rated establishment. They'll eat in restaurants, they'll buy things, etc. It's high time we open our borders and we make it easy for one another, that we trade with each other.
Uganda too is not left out when it comes to investor perception. The country is embarking on a major tourist investment drive that will see the enhancement of the sector through a collaborative move with all stakeholders, reaffirming its position as the Pearl of Africa.
You know what makes Uganda the Pearl of Africa is the tourism attributes, the resources we have, unique resources. And also we are revamping the tourism sector. So it's also the security concern is fine. So the arrivals are increasing, the resources are still there in abundance and diverse.
With all countries still maintaining a strong reliance on wildlife, poaching awareness has been a necessary evil which the government would like to counter through increasing awareness and maintaining a stern approach to poachers.
Tourists come to Tanzania to see the rare animals. They don't come here to see anything else apart from animals. So if we don't do something on the poachers, I don't think we will have tourism in the next 10 years. But we are doing something. The private sector is heavily involved to partner with the government on anti-poaching.
In a bigger picture, all member states have an aspect that may not present the country in good light among tourists. Notwithstanding, all countries have challenges, and the tourist visa was to act as a unifying factor in ensuring that these challenges are dealt with as one. Looking at it wholesomely, all countries have a unique offering that can add to the overall GDP. The country tourism offering presented by the East African Community member states complement each other. This in turn weighs off fears of a possible or feared competition among EAC member states.
Looking at the growth in terms of the economies of these 5 countries, we are destined to higher levels because we are all rich in terms of diversity of tourism products. As the economies grow, as more people reach the middle income status brackets, we need also to promote our 5 countries within ourselves so that we can have more visitation amongst ourselves. Because you can imagine 140 million people, if only 1% of those 140 million were to visit another country within the 5 countries, then clearly our numbers will go up, our revenue will go up. And remember, the value chain in tourism is such that once tourism grows, then other sectors of the economy will also have a multiplier effect in terms of growth.
about it. If you average the tourism contribution to GDP of all the 5 East African member states, the average is less than 10%, spelling potential of the sectors should these countries come together in curbing challenges such as insecurity in the region. That's it for East African Voices this week. For feedback regarding the show, get in touch with us through the social media pages and email address on your screen. Till same time next week, it's goodbye.